Welcome to Retail Revelations, part of the Beard Bros Media Network, at the intersection of culture and industry, where we take you behind the scenes of the cannabis industry so you can be fully informed. I'm your host, Chelsea Mulligan, the Dispensary Whisperer. With over 12 years in the legal cannabis industry and as a medical cannabis consumer since 2002, I've built a career opening, managing, and triaging over 50 dispensaries on my own as a strategist. After a decade of navigating the ever evolving cannabis landscape, I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with so many incredible people and to be a part of their journeys. As the host of Retail Revelations, I'm excited to bring those insights, stories, and lessons to the table. This isn't about sugarcoating success. It's about having those tough, unglamorous, but essential conversations. And together we'll explore the secrets, challenges, triumphs that can help and sometimes hinder license holders on the path to thriving in this ever evolving industry. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that isn't always enjoyable, but is hitting hard, and it's taxes. We'll dive into delinquent taxes, old debt, current inventory, and how these can make or break your business. I'm joined by the incredible Dana Cisneros, an attorney and mediation expert who specializes in working with cannabis businesses across California. Dana helps businesses untangle their toughest financial and regulatory challenges. Welcome to the show, and please introduce yourself, Dana.
Hi, I'm Dana Cisneros. I am the founder and lead attorney at Cannabis Corporate Law Firm. We have been in this space since 2017, a little bit of 2016, but mostly 2017 on. And I'm also a certified mediator and the co-founder of Full Spectrum Mediation, which aims to assist cannabis businesses with all kinds of dispute resolution. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk about taxes and other issues facing retailers and see what we can't talk about and figure out to help unwind the mess that is California cannabis.
To put it nicely. Thank you for joining us.
It's just a little messy. It's just a little messy.
Sometimes it makes it interesting. Taxes, however, are never interesting, at least to me, but they are like the necessary evil, right? And they're not going anywhere. So let's start big picture. California cannabis retailers owe over $1 billion in taxes, which is, a huge number. I've been around the California industry for a while. I've helped numerous businesses who have tax debt, and I don't think I ever would have said it was that number. Can you help explain why businesses have to address their liabilities with taxes before they can even think about how they start mediation with brands they may owe or other things like that?
Yeah, so a lot of retailers are in a really bad spot. They've got a lot of different debts that are pulling at them. And one of them is, of course, the state tax debts that include the excise and sales taxes that they've collected from California consumers. That's the tough part, because that money is held in trust by the retailers on behalf of the state of California. And so what's happened is a lot of retailers have unfortunately used some of that money to pay their staff, to bridge, increases in rents, and things like that. I mean, if you think about it, right, like we're at year 7 of legalization. A lot of leases were 5 years, so things are ballooning. So there's a lot of financial pressures facing retail businesses. But the biggest issue, in my opinion, is always going to be the CDTFA. And the reason is that they have the most power and they're able to execute the quickest because it's built into the law that they're able to take enforcement action without going through a lengthy process. So typically, like in court, if you're in a lawsuit, you have to go through a trial and there has to be an adjudication. With CDTFA, they make assessments and then they do collections based on those assessments. And then there are other enforcement tools that come with those collection efforts, like till taps and keeper levies, There's a myriad of collection tools at their disposal that are not foreign to collection activities. Those are things that happen in like civil court too. It's just that the CDTFA is the government. So they know where your bank accounts are. They know where your business is. It's not a big issue for them to send in the CHP to sit there and take all of the money in your store and every single transaction. Yeah. So it's important because until you figure out that biggest piece with CDTFA, all the money in your bank account remains really at risk. That's something that we saw like with Speedy Weedy and Herbal, and I believe Grass Door, the same thing. What happens is the CDTFA just comes in and does a massive sweep of all of their funds and all of their money. So literally overnight, you can't have staff show up at the front door if you know there's no money to pay them. And so that's why we see businesses just quick cut. Unfortunately, it's happening more and more. But CDTFA is like the biggest gangster on the block, and they're going to get theirs if they want to. And so we've got to work with them and come up with some reasonable terms to work through.
For those who don't know, can you explain a little bit about those collection efforts? Like what a till tap is, what it looks like, what a keeper levy is? Because I think as much as people understand that retailers have to pay taxes and the CDTFA does seek them, I'm not sure people actually understand the level of those collection efforts.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like they literally will come and take every dollar that's in your store. The till tap is funny. I've known about it. I've been practicing law for 17 or 18 years now. And it's something that I learned about probably in my first year of practice. And it like kind of made me laugh. And my boss explained to me that it's literally for us in civil, it's the sheriff, the enforcement, the police enforcement portion for CTFA is the CHP. And that's just statutory. It doesn't really have much to do with anything other than that's who's been designated by law to be their police that go and do this. If it were in civil court and I had a debt that was being collected, I would hire the sheriff to go do it. But they literally go and they sit there next to your cash register, your till. And so as people come in and make purchases, they're like, thank you very much. I'll take that money instead. Thank you very much. I'll take that money instead. So it's literally not going into your register. They're tapping that till. And so there's all kinds of things but I mean, they can do writs of execution on your bank account. If they find out other people owe you money, they can go get that money from them. There's like a lot of things that they can do. None of them, in my opinion, have really netted huge amounts of money though. That's the thing. Like there was they sold a ton of like things and we all kind of laughed about it because it was like bongs and like a bunch of silly stuff. And we're like, oh yeah, you made $1,200. Someone owed you $1 million. Good job. And I just recently had a client that was operating and they ended up having all of their inventory seized. And they could have sold it, the rest of it, for probably $20,000. And I'm certain that the CDTFA is not going to be able to do anything with that inventory. So
it's really a wash at that point.
It's a nothing. It's not even a wash. It's a nothing. There's collection fees associated with going and seizing inventory that's now just going to sit there. I mean, I really wish that they had some kind of program that if there was maybe 30 days that went by, they could at least throw it into an SB 34 program or something. I mean, why destroy good cannabis? It seems stupid.
It doesn't really accomplish anything. So the other harsh consequences we're kind of seeing is sellers' permits have been pulled.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that necessarily has equaled businesses shutting down quite yet. Some of them may have. My opinion is we'll see that in the near future. But tell us a little bit about how CDTFA is handling that, what your view is on how they're handling, how they will handle that in the future, and how licensees can move forwards in a better manner.
Yeah, so I actually just had a call before this one with Nick Maduros from the CDTFA, and who I have always found to be pleasant and also very reasonable. I don't think he has an axe to grind against our industry, to be quite honest. He impressed upon me a number of times that if these were restaurants that had these type of outstanding tax liabilities and as many quarters neglected for being paid as our industry does, that they would have actually likely had their seller's permits pulled and businesses closed way before us. He was suggesting that they've actually given us quite a bit more leeway than other industries. And that kind of does fit, at least in my experience with what I've seen. I had a client that was operating on a pulled seller permit for, I think, like 8 months. I'm not saying that that's legal. That is not with my legal advice at all. It's not my advice to continue operating without a seller permit. However, it did take the DCC that long to pull their provisional license and then cancel their annual application, which is what the DCC seems to be doing right now, is revoking provisionals and then canceling the annual application. But nevertheless, in my conversations with Nick, he impressed upon me that, we have a ton of money. We do have a lot of money outstanding. And then there's kind of some categories of businesses that are less likely to be able to negotiate favorably with the CDTFA than others. But first, I think we could talk about the ones that can. But you had just asked, basically, can people operate without a seller permit? Legally, no. Practically, they do. And in the case of the gentleman that I just mentioned, or the business I just mentioned that was operating for quite some time, I think that it's important to note that he was sending in his payments anyways without the permit intact. And I think that's probably why he didn't get the hammer sooner than he did, is because he was paying and all the things. But unfortunately, you can't just have unlimited time. And they weren't willing to continue to negotiate to a favorable resolution.
When you referenced that, if it was a restaurant or any other industry or type of business that had lapsed in the amount of months that we had, are you talking 1 month of lapsed taxes, 2 months? Are we talking 5 months? Like, obviously, it's the gamut, but how far have some of these businesses kind of pushed it that the CDTFA is looking at?
Oh, that I don't know. And I think Nick didn't really have a way to quantify just on our call. Of course, I think he does have a way to quantify. Just in our quick call earlier today, I don't think he was prepared to quantify sort of like, if there's any particular region or if there's, any particular sort of like standard number of quarters that someone hasn't paid. But I got the impression that there's folks that haven't paid like in years. And part of the hard part is that the law is designed such that for cannabis businesses only, we have to file and pay at the same time, where we get a 50% penalty, whereas every other industry, there's a penalty for filing late and there's a different penalty for paying late. But they always want you to file. And I'm guessing that a lot of our retailers have not filed because they don't have the money to pay. I do want to mention that in the CDTFA, so every business has a portal. I'm sure you've been in it. I've been in it, but every business has a portal where it has your tax accounts listed, and you can like go in and look at history of payments, history of filings, what's owed, what the interest is, if penalties have been assessed, all the information. Look at every single quarter or tax filing that you've done. And also in there, if you are delinquent, there's actually like an automatic process for entering into a payment plan. If you're going to pay in full within a certain number of months, and I don't remember off the top of my head if it's like 12, 18, or 24. I kind of think it's 24, but it could be less. So don't take my word for it, but there's some reasonable number of months where you don't need anybody's help. You just go in the portal yourself. You say, hey, I want to pay this over these many months. And like it puts you up on a payment plan. And I think that that's what anybody any retailer who's facing, different categories of debts needs to start looking at first, is how to deal with outstanding tax debts. And cities are also starting to be a little bit more practical as well. A lot of them will not renew permits if you owe city taxes. I just personally negotiated in two different cities. I can't reveal one of them because it's too small and then everyone will know who my client is. But one of them's Los Angeles, and that doesn't matter because there's millions of them there. But one of them's in a small town. But I just negotiated for two different clients payment plans with cities where they had fallen behind on either their fees or their taxes. And I think that that's kind of becoming the norm because I think that the cities and also the state is going to have to wake up and realize that there's just not money to be paid right now. So they have to take what they can get. So yeah, I did share with Nick like how my LA retailer just negotiated and shared with him the numbers. And without batting an eyelash, he was like 100%. He's like, not a single one of my collectors would have said no to that. So that I take as a really good sign, because 2 months ago when I talked to them, they did indicate to me that they were getting ready to pull a lot of sellers permits and that their patients had, and I don't mean personally, like nobody's like actually mad about this. I just mean like from a systemic point of view, we've run the patient's meter down on the government because we're not paying, and the infighting and the hemp and the all the things. They don't want to, they were getting a little frustrated. But I was really, really happy to hear today when I talked to Nick that he was like, I don't really recall saying hundreds. And he's like, I know you've said that on social media. And I was like, because you said that. And he was like, I really don't remember saying that. I don't know if it was the hundreds that we've pulled, but it seems like they do want to work with the industry now. And maybe he was just, having a reaction to that particular client I was dealing with. But so that's really given me a sign up to be optimistic that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, that there is a way through our debt crisis where CDTFA is willing to play ball. I mean, again, it's got to be reasonable, and the folks have got to make their payments though.
Well, and I think, the biggest thing to take from that on the larger picture is they can't stick their head in the sand. Just like the state is also going to have to wake up and acknowledge like they need to take what they can get based on where the industry is and the fact that there is no money to be paid. But licensees are also going to need to acknowledge the issues, right? If you just stick your head in the sand, there is no path forward. So when you and I had talked in the past, you mentioned what you called 3 buckets,
Mm-hmm.
which would help businesses tackle their tax and other financial challenges. So can you dig into those, please?
Yeah. So I think of like it based on the retailers that I've helped sort of crawl out of like situations where there doesn't appear to be light, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The ones that I've been able to help, there is like 3 buckets. One is taxes. So you have to deal with your city and state taxes. I know that there are federal income taxes also looming, but nobody's making that much money yet. And hopefully, any taxes are being, that is where the business funds are going, is to pay the federal taxes. I'm not a tax attorney. I just practice in California, and so I have to work with the CDTFA all the time. So delinquent taxes, I think, is like the number one issue, as I said, because they have such massive authority that without dealing with them first and figuring out what kind of payments that they'll agree to you don't know what's left in the pot to divvy out to the others. And then the second one is really like old debt. And that includes like overdue invoices, and payments to suppliers. And retailers are going to have to just get really honest with themselves, with their teams, and really with the brands about what they can do. I think also one of the things that's like really plaguing our industry, and I think it's just in general, is people just ghost people, and there's no communication. And when communication breaks down, we're all left with the narrative in our head, and it's always bad. It's never like, oh, I'm sure he's fine and collecting the money for me right now, and he'll be here next week at my door. It's like, that motherfucker's on vacation right now. He just bought another car and had a $20,000 party for his kid or something, like literally those are the shit we see on social media. So it's that if you're not talking to people and keeping them in the loop, then they don't know. I have a client right now going through an audit, and he just said, like, I just can't get to it this week. And I'm like, then tell the auditor, just tell them. Like, they're human beings too, and they probably have 60 files. Who knows if they're even going to get to your damn file this week anyways? Like, you telling them, sorry, I'm not going to get you this week. Okay, cool. That's next week now. So I think communication is really helpful. But, now I've seen retailers have, 120 plus days of, non-payment on invoices. And the emails are just going into an abyss. And they're going to the buyer, and they're going to people like me who just have an email on the license or something. And that's not exactly helpful because it's not going to the person that writes the checks. And so retailers really do need to get it together and figure out what money is available to pay off old debts. And then whatever's left, we can start looking at current inventory. And really, like, that's the end goal, is to turn the cash flow back on, so that once you've established what you owe CDTFA and how much money you're going to have to be paying them, and then you can talk to your brands and figure out something with them. You don't be that paying off invoices over time, or, paying on shorter terms. I have a lot of folks that had to go to net 7 instead of net 30, they're net 7. So just week by week. And that's a heads up to the brands too, like in terms of letting retailers get too far ahead of you. Maybe you do have to make more frequent stops and come in more frequently and collect. Okay, well, that was what was sold last week, and take it. Because I know from brands, they're very upset. They're like, what the hell? You sold my product. You took the money. I've actually had brands tell retailers to give the goddamn product back. Oh, we sold it. Then where's the money? So retailers have got to really be honest with themselves and figure out what they can do to strategically manage their current inventory. Because if they don't have current inventory, then they're not going to sell anything to pay anything off. But they also can't just keep doing what they've been doing and using tax money and brand credit to run their business. So those are sort of the 3 buckets, in my opinion: delinquent taxes, old debt, current inventory.
All very practical. And I like that you touched on not the invoices, right? Either going from net 30 to net 7, doing smaller orders, because when I come into a receivership, I often have brands that are like, oh, let me bring you another order, and then you'll be able to pay me for both of the back invoice and this one. And I'm like, no, not more than one open invoice. If you're digging a deeper hole with invoices, it's inevitable that it will be only harder to pay it back. So I think that's a huge thing to take away from that, as well as retailers can't keep digging a hole and ordering more and more and more. And brands, like, it's okay to set a boundary and say, no, you have to pay your open invoices.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much exactly what Nick Maduros just said to me was, one of the things that they look at in determining whether or not they would even accept a payment plan from someone who wants to go beyond those, I think it is 24 months, beyond those 24, 18 months, whatever it is, that's an automatic approval. If you want to work with them, you're going to have to show financials and really, go in deep with the CDTFA. And that's something my firm does all the time. And it's not like super complicated. It's just that and I tell my clients all the time, are you actually broke? Then let's just show them that, okay? If unless you're lying to me, which I don't think you are, like, let's just show them how broke you are, and then we'll get a lower payment out of them, right? And so that's really what you've got to do. But that was his comment, was that people can't just keep going into a never-ending hole. So if you're getting into that's why they're being sort of more selective with their payment plan negotiations, is because they want to be sure that not only can you meet the payment plan obligations, but also that you're able to pay your current taxes each and every month. And that is a contingency and a requirement of all payment plans that I've seen, is that you stay up to date on your current taxes. There have been occasions where I have clients that can't do it. They call me and they say, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay my taxes now. We're going to get kicked off our payment plan. It's only happened once, but CDTFA was willing to renegotiate with me and wrap them all together and get into a different payment plan that included that particular quarter. So they're not completely unreasonable. I think that the message is being proactive, and if you haven't been in the past, it's like time to start right now. I think that probably one of the reasons that client struggled and didn't have a successful outcome is that they came to me at like 8 months in, and I wasn't able to help at the beginning. And I think that like the sooner you get someone involved that is not emotionally attached to the business, I think that's another big thing. These are a lot of people's babies, especially the 215 folks. These are their businesses for a very, very long time. What's happened to the 215 retailers is pretty sad. It's very sad, and my heart goes out to them like this.
So as the industry evolves, what would you say the next big challenges for businesses in cannabis are as they try to stay compliant? And honestly, as much as I want to say maintain a strong foundation, it's really about staying alive and operating, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I really think, I mean, for businesses that are distressed, I think that really they might need to lean down. I personally have observed in most of the retail businesses that have problems, they have a pretty inflated payroll. And I don't know that that's necessary. And I don't want anybody to lose their jobs, but at the same time, nobody will have a job if there's no business. And so
Yep.
I just think that they have to face reality, to be honest, and get really familiar with their books and their financials. It's been 7 years of legalization. Like, businesses should be on top of their financials beyond how many sales did we have today and what was the average ticket size? Because I'm pretty sure that's what most owners look at every morning, is how many customers did we have? How much money did we make? But none of that matters if you owe twice as much money. So
Truth.
yeah, I think if people are reasonable, and I think if they tackle their tax debts in a manageable way, and I think if they have some integrity and go to the brands that they deal with to come to reasonable terms, I think the brands are going to starve. Like, they're starving right now. I think that there's probably some negotiation to be made. Maybe that looks like, chip away at an old invoice as a new inventory comes in. Now, maybe not in receivership, like you said, but if there's something that's structured, it certainly makes sense to have everybody come up at the same time, right? And a rising tide lifts all boats. And that was one of the reasons why Courtney and I started Full Spectrum Mediation, is because we want to be able to come in and help people sit down at the table and realistically figure out, like, what can everybody live with? What can I pay, and what can you take that, we can get to pay off at some point. If everybody's like, you owe me the full balance in 30 days, then nobody's going to get a call back. It's simple.
Agreed.
There's not the money. The money's not there. You can't get blood from a maternal. So I think it's just a dose of being realistic. And I hate to say it, but like, some of these retailers, like, some of these guys are going to honestly have to sell their cars and shit. Like, I'm sorry. Like that
And
is
that's
what
okay.
everybody in America does when your business starts to fail. You don't just be like, oh, well, I care that I still have a Ferrari in my driveway. Like, no, dumbass, sell that fucking car. Like,
It's so true, though. I mean, thank you for being so candid, and honest, because I think, to be accountable and to be proactive, you have to have candor and you have to be able to be honest. And same with mediation. You also have to have empathy, which you also have. So thank you. Um, please
yeah,
tell
my
all of the
heart goes
listeners.
out to everybody for real. This is a really tough situation. That the retailers are in. And I feel like a lot of my words during this conversation have been a little harsh, but truly like it's from love and wanting to help and really wanting to help the industry move forward in a way where we trust each other again. And, it used to be a handshake business and people used to pay their debts. And now you can't even get people on the phone. It's just gone the other way. We can't let them win like that.
But it's so true. It used to be handled very differently. So, and while it may seem a little bit harsh and it is out of love, something different has to be done because what's happening isn't working. So I think, getting honest is the only way to move forwards. Um, that wraps up our episode pretty much.
That was so
So
fast.
tell all of the listeners how they can find you, how they can follow along with your thoughts, how they can reach out.
Okay. So you can find me at cannabiscorplaw.com, on LinkedIn. My office line is 714-676-2035. But you can also find me. It is March 20. I just want to let the retailers watching know real quick. Coming up on March 24th or 25th, I want to say 24th, we will, California Normal is lobbying early this year. We normally lobby in May. And we're lobbying in March this year because this is all hands on deck. We have a 19% excise tax that we're facing in July, unless the legislature changes that. And so that's what we'll be doing. And I just want to encourage every single retail owner and operator to get to Sacramento and start talking to our electeds because they need to vote for it and they're going to need political cover. And we need to explain to them that we cannot sustain a 19% excise tax. I don't know if it'll happen this year, but we also need to reduce that 50% tax penalty that I mentioned because it's worse to pay your cannabis taxes late than it is to outright lie and commit tax fraud because that's a 25% penalty and ours is 50%. So
That's mind blowing within itself, by the way.
So, but I have to be honest, we don't see hardly any retailers up in Sacramento when we go lobby. So this year, come. If you don't know how to find us, like hit me anywhere on LinkedIn, hit up Chelsea, hit up anybody on the Beard Bros Network. Like this is all hands on deck. We really do need to lobby, and not lobby. It's not even the right word because no one's paying us. We are concerned citizens going to the halls of our government to explain to our elected officials that we need their help in the ability of our industry to survive. And that does not come across any clearer than from the retailers themselves that can tell their stories. One of my clients is going to come and tell them in 215, I had 1,200 people a day, and now I have 400 people a day. And you want to raise my taxes. And every smoke shop in Los Angeles sells flower. And there's a million problems that we've got, and they need to be addressed because a lot of our retailers are paying a lot of taxes, billions.
Okay, so this is a call to action. All of you retailers, show up in March. Let's be proactive instead of being reactive. None of us can handle 19%. So thank you for highlighting that. I think that was super important.
Yeah, I'll be there. I definitely will be there. And I'm encouraging all of my clients to go. And I really like, if the halls are flooded with retailers, they will have no choice but to listen to us. But everybody has to act and take ownership for themselves and do something rather than complain.
Truth. Well, thank you again, Dana, and thank you for everyone tuning in. Be sure to follow Beard Bros Farms on Instagram. Go ahead and sign up for their Friday Sesh Live, since all of us wish we could smoke a joint with them every Friday, but that's not always reality. Join us next time to dive into other essential cannabis retail related topics. And until then, I'm Chelsea Mulligan, the Dispensary Whisperer. Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks, Chelsea.